Have you seen the studies that show where they've interviewed parents and said, have you talked to your children about sex? And the parents say, oh, yes, we have. And then they take the kids of those parents and ask them, have your parents talked to you about sex? And 70% of those kids say, my parents never bring it up. So parents think they're having a conversation, but...
Well, it's the fear and the emotions that go with this, and so it actually stops people from doing what they will tell me, and they'll tell you, we believe we should do this. But
we don't know how, and the wrong method, and when I work with adults...
It's a one-time type, it's a one-time shot, the 101 course.
When I talk to parents, that's one of the funniest things, is they'll actually go, okay, well, I've been working myself up to this. I'm going to take my child away for a weekend, and I'm going to tell them about the birds and the bees, and then it'll be over. And I say, oh, honey, you're so mistaken. Do your kids have chores? Have you ever successfully told your child to do their chores one time, and it actually lasted for an hour? But you want that one talk to last until they're married. You've got to be kidding.
What we talk about in the class is I call it stair-stepping, is you start young with age-appropriate information, and you go up. You don't do it one time. 15 is too late, 16, all those ages, middle school is too late. They won't talk to you by then. So if you're doing it early, I know my girls will come home. They tell me things, probably more than I want to know, really. But they'll come home and they'll talk with you and ask you questions, and matter-of-factly give them answers. And they'll come back and ask you more questions. So
positive and directed is much more effective than fearful and repressive.
Because they pick up.
Well, how difficult is it to teach people that are so influenced and probably misguided by their parents? How difficult is it to teach people to wait to have sex?
Here's the thing. It's not difficult at all. The difficulty is in the reinforcement. I mean, in the program that I do, it is a supplement to an entire program. California is a state that requires, at the high school level, comprehensive sex education. So there isn't anything such as abstinence only in California. It doesn't exist, and as far as I know, it doesn't actually exist in any other states. But the idea is that abstinence is presented separately. So comprehensive sex ed talks about contraception, talks about condoms, talks about risk reduction, and then I would be the supplement to that, which would be, okay, I followed that track. I chose to do what I was being told at my age when I was a teenager, that this was okay. It's okay to have sex as long as you're committed to the person, as long as you're in love, and as long as you use birth control. Not effective in my case. I did get pregnant. I did choose to have an abortion. I did continue to be sexually active even though I was on the pill, and eventually wound up so that my only chance to have a child was the one I threw away when I was a teenager, thinking that won't happen to me, of course. So when I'm talking to teens, I am actually saying, look, I am a live and breathing person. This is my experience, and I have a number of other partners who allow me to share their stories. And so we're using the part of their brain that they can understand, where they're looking at us and they're saying, wow, you're a real person. You're not a statistic. You're not just a number. You're a real person. And in doing that, I can say, look, these are things that you can do. These are choices that you can make so that you can choose to have a healthy relationship. But it's like making decisions for your career. If you think walking out of high school, you are going to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, guess again. You have to have a strategy. You have to go through the steps to learn the skills that are necessary to succeed in anything. And certainly succeeding in relationships are just as important.
And what you did was you related to them as a person.
Exactly.
You shared your experiences. If parents did this, some parents are afraid, especially if they've either had sex or had an abortion.
They don't know what to say.
They feel that it's giving them permission. I find that kids don't disrespect that.
Not even a little bit.
They appreciate, because then you say, and here's what happened. Here's the consequences for me.
Sure.
You know, maybe some positive, or we have you because of it, or something like that. You know, but say otherwise it was very difficult. And to do that on an emotional level, that's what really, I think, hits home. That's what you do.
It totally does. I mean, I can give you a very simple example. If I say to you, Cynthia, 1 out of every 5 people over the age of 12 in the United States has herpes, that is not going to affect your behavior. You might think, wow, that's a big number, and it is. But if I tell you I'm one of those people, you will have a reaction to that that's very different, because I don't look like someone who could have herpes. Do you understand the difference in what I'm saying? So that's how we do it. We're very positive, we're very directed, and we are certainly not saying sex is bad, not by a long shot. Sex is wonderful. You should look forward to it. It's wonderful.
Dr. MacDonald, do boys have sex early because of gender roles?
Well, I think peer pressure has a lot to do with it. And in fact, what I find really interesting is despite all the advances that women have made in equality, and they're getting 30% more college degrees than men are and so on, is what I see in the pop culture is very disturbing, the way that women are treated, I think.
Oh, yes.
And the women buy into it in a way and go back for it, and they're often used sexually. And so the males get a message that this is how you show you're a man, or you grow up, or you certainly take advantage of it. And what my daughters have told me, the 6 of them have told me about what goes on and what they've seen, it's really a disturbing picture where with all the gains, the place of women and the way they're treated, I think, it's pretty shabby.
It is.
In many ways, in the teen culture, there's often very little respect, a lot of disrespectful words used, mostly by women.
Absolutely.
And the last program I did in here was by someone else, and we talked about the terms that are used to describe females today very frequently, and where that comes from, and why that's coming about. So
and it does make you somehow stop and imagine, what will these young men who have these terms and these ways of behaving with women, what kind of marriages would they have? How will they raise their children? Because we do tend to operate a little bit below whatever the standard is. So if the standard is to treat women sexually, what will they teach the next generation? That is the thing that alarms me.
Karen, what do you think the value of virginity is?
Well, I mean, obviously it's different for religious people. It's different in different cultures. In some cultures, being a virgin is extremely highly prized as an idea of setting a woman apart, of her being in a way showing her exclusivity for that one person she will bond with for the rest of her life. But in our culture, I've talked to young people who see it as something that is shameful they need to get rid of as soon as possible. And that it is the equivalent of being called a whore back in my day. Being called a virgin today has a similar kind of difficulty. For me, personally, on a personal level, when I decided that I was going to practice the skill of sexual self-control, when I was going to learn how to do that, I called myself a renewed virgin because I was teaching myself to think like a virgin again. I was teaching myself to see sexual things as treasures. They were important to me, and I wanted them to have value again. But does it mean the same thing to someone who is, you know, sexually active with a single partner at 20? I don't know. I don't think so.
So are you saying that it's also never too late?
Never too, oh my gosh. If I can start over, anybody can start over. I bought the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker. So if I can start over and learn to do this and then benefit from it in my marriage, which I have, then anybody can.
Dr. MacDonald, what would you tell a 14-year-old girl if she comes and tells you that she's ready to have sex? What kind of advice?
I think I've had this talk with my own daughters.
You'd say call
6 of them. I'd want to explore what being ready is, what it really means, and what are the possibilities. How are you going to feel? What if that person never talks to you again? What would it be like the next day when you're waiting for a phone call, or you want to call that person or text them or sext them? And, you know, so to play out the scenario. And the reality is that at that age, we're not going to end up together. It's really rare. Right. So I'd want to do a lot of explanation.
All right. Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you for watching. My name is Cynthia Garcia, and this is On Point.
New studies are showing us that oxytocin is something that's produced in a woman's brain. We've known about oxytocin because it's produced during childbirth and breastfeeding, and it causes maternal bonding. Now we know the female brain, your brain, every time you kiss and cuddle and hug with someone, is producing the same bonding chemical that makes a woman capable of getting up at 2 in the morning to feed a crying baby when she really doesn't want to. It's because of that powerful bond. Well, if your brain just produces that bonding hormone, and this guy treats you like dirt and your friends convince you to break up with him, that bond is so powerful it will draw you back to him.